Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have Stephanie. Stephanie has a bomb drop of September 6th, 2024, and a date of marriage of 2010. She has a boomerang who is a high energy replayer. This is a follow-up from last week. Stephanie says, my ex-husband has now unlocked me on WhatsApp as we are trying to be better at co-parenting. We spoke today for the first time in months. I know he's being controlled by the alienator as she's very jealous. The conversation went okay, but he's very close to getting angry with me, so easily offended at my responses. He sees himself as a victim, that I've been cruel to him. It's like what he has done to me doesn't exist. That him divorcing me to be with a 22-year-old? What the F? I did my best to be calm, but I wanted to scream at him that he's an a-hole. Is this the way forward or not? It makes me so angry that he's not taking responsibility in this mess. I need your advice. So, first thing I am going to tell you is I really had to think about this one. So I wrote notes, and I don't usually do that. I have a lot of notes, and I am going to be reading off of a lot of my notes. So you're going to see me looking down a lot for this one because I really wanted to get this right, because I was feeling like, yes, I'm so angry. Stephanie, I'm angry with you. I get it. So I want you to know that. So you asked if this is the way forward. But I think what you're really asking is, are you doing this right, even though this feels terrible? Or are you supposed to tolerate being emotionally erased and being emotionally minimized just so that you can co-parent? And if you stay calm while he rewrites your history, are you betraying yourself? Because he blew up your family for a 22-year-old and he claims that you're the monster. Your anger makes sense. Of course you're angry. It's okay to be angry. And it's healthy to be angry. Don't let anyone ever tell you that your anger is wrong or that your anger is dangerous. It becomes dangerous when you don't talk about it, and when you don't let it out, and when you allow it to explode, and when you allow it to become rage. Your anger isn't a sign that you're doing this wrong. It's a sign that you're expecting fairness from someone who's avoiding responsibility. You're trying to co-parent, and that is your primary goal, and it is a priority. But you're also trying to be understood, and you don't want to be seen as cruel. And as a bonus, I bet you'd probably like him to get regulated. You want him to be emotionally accountable. Yeah, right. Would not be nice. But we're talking about someone who's in a midlife crisis, and he's in limerence. And either of those negate a person's capacity for having insight and for taking accountability. His accountability will validate your experience and your emotional pain. This did happen. It is happening. You aren't crazy. It's real. And the mismatch of what is so obvious to most people versus his skewed version is making you furious. I get it, because this is the birthplace of the scorned. Most of us here are familiar with that, aren't we? So let's start by defining what co-parenting actually is and what it's not, because I just get the feeling, or I wonder, if actual co-parenting has been missed amidst all this conflict. So I Googled the definition, and what I really did was I asked Google, co-parenting is. So I put in co-parenting is, and I get the Google AI, and then I did the dive deeper. So I'm going to read the entire thing. Co-parenting is when two parents, even if separated, work together as a team to share the responsibilities and decisions of raising their child. Focusing on the child's need for love, stability, and consistency by cooperating, communicating, and creating unified rules for their upbringing, rather than letting past relationship issues dictate their shared parenting role. Kind of hard. It's about putting the child's well-being first, ensuring they have both parents' support in a structured and loving environment, even if it means overcoming personal feelings like resentment. Here are some ways to finish the sentence. Co-parenting is a partnership in raising happy, well-adjusted kids. Co-parenting is a commitment to consistency and cooperation for your child's sake. Co-parenting is putting your differences aside to build two stable homes for your child. Co-parenting is a journey of communication and mutual respect for the sake of your children's future. Co-parenting is learning to parent as a team, not as ex-partners. Dive deeper. Co-parenting is the joint effort of two or more adults to share the responsibility of raising and caring for a child, typically after a divorce or separation. Common ways to complete this sentence based on various contexts include definitions and goals. A partnership focused on the child. It prioritizes the child's well-being over the past relationship between the adults. And that's going to be the focus of everything. And this is why I said, I think that it was just more of a feeling that I said, I feel like we're not thinking about the kids in this. And I'm sure you're thinking about the kids. But as I was reading the question, I'm not seeing children in it. I'm not seeing children. I'm just seeing anger, 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 and him, selfish, selfish, selfish. I feel your anger. I feel his selfishness. And then I feel my anger at him. So I feel your anger and mine and his selfishness. But I don't get a feel for the children at all. And yet they are the priority in this, aren't they? So we have definitions and goals. The bridge to a child's security. Effective co-parenting helps children feel safe and valued despite family changes. Modeling a healthy relationship. It provides a chance to show children how to solve problems peacefully and communicate effectively. Common quotes and sentiments. It's a heading. Not a competition. It's about working together and not trying to be the better parent. So no competition. It's about two happy homes. Many families find it is better to have two stable households than one miserable one. Broken but beautiful. Even when a marriage ends, parents can still cooperate to build a positive future for their kids. Next heading, levels of collaboration. Cooperative, when parents collaborate on every important decision with mutual respect. Parallel. So there is also the idea, which I mentioned later too, when parents limit contact to avoid conflict, raising the child independently in their own homes. So that is parallel parenting. Conflicted, when adults struggle to communicate without arguing, which may require legal intervention or mediation. So that is beyond the scope of this video, is the idea of parallel parenting, which is parenting when ex-partners are unable to get along. So the goal of these conversations is not mutual understanding. You do not have to absorb his version of reality to be a good co-parent. You do not need to correct him. Silence is a good boundary. And I really had to think about that when I thought of that, because I want to do that too. You do not have to absorb somebody else's version of reality. And sometimes we're thinking about how we have to co-parent, and not parallel, but we're thinking co-parent at the moment. And so we want to come to these agreements, but we don't have to. Sometimes there is, I always hate that term, agree to disagree, because I want to go, no, I'm not going to agree to disagree. I'm just going to argue it out. Sometimes I'm going to let this go. And we are going to agree to disagree for the sake of our children. And you don't need to correct them. Okay, you're going to serve them pancakes for breakfast with the icky syrup that has high fructose corn syrup, and apparently I'm just going to shut up about it. I'm not going to correct him. Silence is often a boundary. Silence. You don't need to correct the other person. One of your goals, this was indirectly spoken in your question, was about wanting to be understood. And that's important, but it's not the co-parenting one. That's something else. Co-parenting is just for co-parenting, and kids come first. So this can be the way forward if you narrow the lane. You asked it, if this is your way forward. So when we're co-parenting, we're only going to be focusing on that. We're not going to be focusing on being understood. So it's only about the kids. We're going to keep it neutral. No correcting. We're going to go short exchanges and no emotional processing. So no relationship stuff. We're going to keep that for other times because you can do that, but that's not the co-parenting times. Now, next, and this is where it got difficult for me here because I really was getting mad at him. I feel like you do. And I want to get mad at him. But I also want to leave room for space for reconciliation. I want to leave space. I want to be soft. But I want there to be boundaries. Boundaries are so important. And yet I don't want to be so firm and so swift with those boundaries that we create, conflict and resistance. I want to leave you space for standing, if that's what you choose. I want to leave space for reconciliation, for contact and communication, for friendship. I want to leave space for you to be soft. And I'm going to admit, I was really confused at first with the softness versus the boundaries, because I wasn't sure where I was going to balance that. Soft, and I put it like this. I said, okay, there's softness and there's boundaries. As though you do one or the other, and you don't do one or the other. It's not either or, and I know that because boundaries are something you always should have. So boundaries, I had to think it through. How do we do this then? Boundaries are the container, because we always need them, right? Softness is your tone, how you're going to approach this situation. But you're not always going to use a soft tone, are you? You're going to use it when the conditions are safe. So let's talk about that softness. It's meant to be gentle. It's a soothing voice. It's meant to help others feel calm, feel safe. Softness prevents conflict. It de-escalates and diffuses. It can even help keep you on task. It's not working if he or if you don't let it reduce your own emotional dysregulation. If you don't let it reduce the conflict. And it has a shadow side. It can actually enable your dysregulation. And he already has a victim identity. He wants to be that victim. You're the bad guy, he told you. And so it can feed into that victimness if he thinks you're, oh, you poor baby. And it's said with that soft, maybe it's said with pity too, but the soft tone. Maybe he thinks you're being that way, or maybe he thinks you're making fun of him with it. Whatever they think. If he's in a victim mood, it's not going to work. Maybe he feels like arguing. It's not going to work. Softness isn't beneficial when it deregulates or dysregulates you, when it gives him more excuses to act and feel like he's a victim. But it can be your superpower when it is co-regulating and it helps him feel safe with you. Knowing when. And you're going to know when with practice. The next thing I want you to consider with your boundaries and softness is who is and was the man that you married. What was he like for all of those pre-MLC years? Is what you're seeing midlife crisis and limerence and the shame and the avoidance that comes with those? Is it the ego collapse and the projection and the abuse from the emotional blackmail, that 22-year-old, she's given it to him. That is emotional blackmail. That control that she has, that is part of emotional blackmail. And if you aren't familiar with that, go get Susan Forward's book titled Emotional Blackmail and read up on it. And emotional blackmail has an acronym called FOG, which is fear, obligation, and guilt, that she will apply. But it is really good to understand what he might be going through on his side, and it is abuse. So think about all of the things that he's projecting out towards you could be coming through her and the abuse that he's getting. And then he's now bringing it forward to others. But is it those things? And those things have to do with his midlife crisis. Or is it those things and long-standing entitlement? Long-standing, in other words, pre-MLC. Long-standing entitlement and lack of empathy. Are those things finally coming unmasked? Basically, what I'm asking, has he always had some of these characteristics? Even if they may have been more covert, or if you were in denial? Are they just starting to be noticed? Are you just seeing them? And then, even though I've just asked that, for now, I don't want you to decide who he is. Decide what his behavior requires from you right now. And that's important because you might not know the answer to the question about who he was if that person was masked. That person may have been masked even to him. Behavior versus character. Good people can have bad behaviors. So for now, what does his behavior require from you in each interaction? So in all these co-parenting interactions, you're going to have times when he is an absolute jackass. And his behavior requires that you have strong boundaries and you are absolutely firm with him. And you can be firm and soft tone at the same time. And sometimes you can be firm and you don't have a soft tone. And you tell him to get out of this house, you dumb jackass. And you don't treat me that way. You just need to look, what does the behavior require? Treat him according to the behavior. And remember, character versus behavior. Think about your children. When they misbehave, we love our children. We know they're going to misbehave. But do we say, you're a bad child? Because they did a behavior that was bad? We expect our children to mess up, right? And so let's put that on them too. Okay? That's a really big thing that I look at globally for midlife crisis. Okay. And I want you to think about that. But you're only a little past a year in. And midlife crisis, I'm really sorry, it gets worse before it gets better, and you're still in the it gets worse phase, which means I want you to work on the anger. And it's okay to be angry and have the anger. Your anger. Remember, it's not a sign that you are doing anything wrong. It's a sign you're expecting fairness from someone who is avoiding responsibility. Okay? It's okay to be angry. It is normal to be angry. But I also want you to learn and know how to release your anger. I want you to detach from what he is doing so that you are not taking it personally, so that you can co-parent. And when he walks out the door or you hang up the phone, you can take a breath and go, okay, whatever, we're done. I can move on to the next thing. Or I can do the whatever I said I'm going to do for the co-parenting project that we're on, or whatever that is, and not worry about whatever it is. Okay, I know he is or is not going to do what he said he would. And it's just that it is what it is. And I accept it. I don't like it. I accept it in the sense of, I accept it as reality. Okay? It's not about me. And you can be angry. You can set a boundary and you can set consequences for those. And you can figure out who he was and who he is, because men do return from midlife crisis. And I can't make you a promise. I won't make you a promise from that. Men in midlife crisis have high levels of narcissism. That does not mean they had that level of narcissism before midlife crisis. So it does not mean they will have that level of narcissism after midlife crisis. But did they have a high level of narcissism before midlife crisis that you weren't aware of? That maybe you denied, or maybe you just weren't aware of it because you didn't know about those things. You didn't know about covert narcissism, and you've learned. And so now you know more, or you didn't see things. And so now you're recognizing, oh, now I see that behavior is a type of narcissistic behavior, but it's covert. It's not the overt, grandiose narcissistic behavior that I always recognized as narcissism. And that can change how you look at his midlife crisis when you think, okay, are they coming through or not? And what I'm doing with my stand. But I want right now, I want you to work on yourself and work on your detachment. Work on the kids. One or more. I think it looked like you said you had one from, I think it was, you kept it singular. Focus on the co-parenting. Focus on your healing. You can do that. Okay? Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Okay? Because anger's okay, but it doesn't always feel good, does it? Deep breaths. Okay. You're normal. I want you to be sure you're normal. So I hope this helps. And I will see you, and I will see everybody in the next question.